Greetings, fellow time travelers. Welcome back to Ancient Mystery, where we uncover the hidden mysteries of lost civilizations and dive deep into the secrets that shaped our world. I'm your archaeological guide, and today we're embarking on one of the most mind-blowing journeys in our channel's history. Picture this. 4,500 years ago, on the scorching sands of Egypt, something absolutely extraordinary was taking place. Workers were raising stones weighing tons each, building monuments so massive they would dominate the skyline for millennia. But here's the mystery that has baffled archaeologists for centuries. How did they do it? Today, we're not just visiting the pyramids of Giza. We're traveling hundreds of miles away from them to remote desert locations and ancient Red Sea ports, where recent discoveries are finally revealing the truth about how these architectural wonders were built. What we're about to uncover will challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient Egypt. Before we unveil these incredible secrets, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss the ancient mysteries we're about to reveal. Let's start our journey at the Giza Plateau, standing before the most iconic structures in human history, the Great Pyramids of Egypt. The sheer scale of these monuments is absolutely mind-blowing. The two highest and largest pyramids were built for Pharaoh Khufu and his son Khafre. Khufu's pyramid originally stood at an astounding 146 meters tall. That's about as high as a 40-story modern building. And get this incredible number. Each pyramid contains approximately 2.5 million stone blocks. But here's the question that has haunted historians for generations. How were they built? Over the past few decades, important discoveries have been made right here at the construction site. But now, here's where it gets really exciting. Far away from the Giza Plateau, hundreds of kilometers from the pyramids themselves, archaeologists are gaining more knowledge about how these monuments were constructed than they ever discovered at the foot of the pyramids themselves. Two teams of Egyptologists are currently working in remarkable locations. One team deep in the heart of the desert and another on the Red Sea coast. What they're discovering is rewriting history as we speak. What have they found? How can these new discoveries help us understand how the ancient Egyptians worked? By reconstructing their techniques and methods, will these teams finally unveil some of the secrets of these great builders? That's exactly what we're about to find out. Khufu's pyramid and those built after it stand majestically on the Giza Plateau. This exceptional location served as a massive necropolis for several centuries before being virtually forgotten beneath the desert sands. Here's something that will surprise you. When Napoleon and his forces arrived at the end of the 18th century, the bases of the pyramids weren't even visible, and the Sphinx was partially buried under sand. Can you imagine that? These colossal monuments, nearly swallowed by the desert. Over the century and a half following that memorable expedition, massive excavation work was undertaken to remove the sand from the Giza Plateau. But the real breakthrough came in the 1980s. Egyptologists Zahi Hawass and Mark Lehner made a discovery that would change everything. They uncovered the village and cemetery of the workers who built Khafre's pyramid, Khufu's son. For the first time, The lives of the pyramid builder began to emerge from the shadows, and what they found contradicted the stereotypical images written in biblical texts. Pay attention to this crucial revelation. Pharaoh's workers were not slaves. They were treated well and fed properly. They were organized into teams of 40 people each. These men were so proud of their work that they chose to be buried beside their king. These excavations continued for 30 years, but here's the problem. Centuries of looting and occupation of the site after Khufu's death had hidden a massive amount of evidence. Not a single papyrus, not a single written document from his reign was found on the Giza plateau. The ravages of time had also destroyed all the colossal statues of him. The only statue of Khufu that miraculously survived through the ages is a tiny ivory figurine currently displayed in the Cairo Museum. Just 9 centimeters tall. That's all we have of the man who built the greatest pyramid on earth. Ironically, today it has become necessary to leave the Giza plateau to move forward in this investigation. And that's where our real adventure begins. More than 200 kilometers from the pyramids, on the Red Sea coast, at a place called Wadi al-Jarf, new discoveries are changing everything and providing fresh insight into Khufu's world. Egyptologist Pierre Tallet and his team come here every year to excavate for 2 months. During their mission, about 60 workers live here under the supervision of approximately 10 Egyptologists and archaeologists, completely self-sufficient. Their camp is set in the middle of the desert, just meters away from this ancient site that hasn't been inhabited since it was abandoned 4,500 years ago. Imagine that. They're the first people to walk these grounds in 45 centuries. But what has Pierre Tallet found here that couldn't be discovered at the foot of the pyramids? What is the purpose of these galleries carved into the rock? Pierre explains. We're in a typical gallery of Wadi al-Jarf. These galleries served several functions, but their main purpose was to house dismantled boats that were stored inside these chambers between 2 expeditions to the Red Sea. However, after 8 years of excavating these galleries, no complete boat has been found. Just a few parts, sometimes bearing inscriptions. Pierre Tallet didn't find the boats he was looking for, but he discovered traces of Khufu throughout the entire site. Look at this. Here you can see Khufu's cartouche very clearly. You have to imagine that it's actually written vertically, even though the block is horizontal. Here you can read the king's full name very clearly. Khnum Khufu, which literally means, "May the god Khnum protect me." But here's where a scribe wrote Khufu's name by hand using a brush. In the official hieroglyphic version, you can see that the sign of the ram, representing the god Khnum, became more prominent. Pharaohs' names were often associated with a god because they considered themselves godlike. Pierre found traces of Khufu almost everywhere at this site, which had remained beyond human reach for 45 centuries. But what really changed the game was a completely unexpected discovery, something any archaeologist who had ever excavated at the foot of the pyramids would have wished to find. Here it is, in this very ordinary pit. In 2013, between these 2 blocks, Pierre Tallet's team found fragments of papyrus, thousands of pieces, which proved to be the oldest ever discovered in Egypt. Listen to Pierre's reaction. We never expected to find this type of document at such a remote site. Initially, we were looking for a pharaonic port, as we had already discovered several. But this was beyond our wildest dreams. Very quickly, Pierre was able to translate some of the pieces and realized they had just found detailed reports from one of the workers who served under Pharaoh Khufu. You can see that these were logs kept by a lower-level supervisor named Mera, who recounted part of the construction of the Great Pyramid at Giza. This priceless treasure is now protected in the Cairo Museum. What they found was so fragile and extensive that after 6 years there are still many papyrus fragments that need restoration and reassembly. For this extremely delicate task, Pierre called upon one of the world's leading specialists in restoring ancient papyrus to handle his precious discovery. The conservator shares his amazement. "I'm being very careful because there are always small things, and this is really incredible. I don't think anyone has seen papyrus like this before. This papyrus is an administrative report written by an official named Mera. It's somewhat like a 45-century-old Excel sheet. It meticulously records the movements of a team of workers, what they do each day and what they receive in return. Everything in black is what the team does for the king. Everything in red is what the government does for the team. Notice in red you can see deliveries of bread, providing food for the workers for a month. But what's the real new information? What's the scoop these papyri revealed? This document is extremely important because it allowed us to date all the archives found at the Wadi al-Jarf site in 2013. Here we have the date corresponding to the year following the 13th census of large and small livestock during Khufu's reign. In the Old Kingdom era, time was counted twice yearly, according to an inventory of the region's wealth conducted every 2 years. And the papyrus proves that Khufu's reign lasted